the experience. And I remember the feeling that Ash describes in the novel, something that I felt, really the music made me feel, almost like I was being lifted off the ground. It was just so incredibly intense and emotional. And I remember just thinking, I was so blown away. I wanted to find out who this guy was, and then I stumbled on all that information, and it was very, then I felt very conflicted. It hasn't necessarily been proven, so I didn't want to slander him or his name in any way and include it in the novel, even though a lot of the other events in the novel are true to history. All the bombings happened when they happened, things like that. But, and the siege of the Church of the Nativity. So, so I allowed myself to fictionalize, and I changed the name, and Yudel Zeph means the wolf who is beloved. So.
But you didn't change anything else. I'm just curious.
About him?
No, I know a lot about Shlomo Callbacks.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
You're the first person who's asked me about it.
I've written a lot about rabbis who are abusers, and it's exact. Like, there is no fictionalizing of him. You just change the name. And so I've never written a novel, so I'm just curious, like, how it works when you decide to, like, take someone exact as they were and simply change the name, and when does one, feel compelled to change it? I'm just curious why he's exact. This guy's exact. There's no fictionalizing of him and his movement.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because one part of the reason I did change the name is because I'm not terribly familiar with any of that. Okay. I did my research, right, but I was never involved with a Callbacks shul. I've been to Callbacks shuls, but I was never part of it. So, in part I just felt like I don't really have a right to use the name because I don't know for sure if I'm getting everything right. And another part, again, is I didn't want to cause a stir. If, in fact, he was innocent, which I will never know for sure. It doesn't sound like he was, but who knows? I don't want to be judgmental. I don't want to pass judgment on somebody who's dead. And so
it's like you dropped him in the same way you drop all those historical events, the bombings.
Yeah.
Like, exact.
Yeah. I mean, I love research.
Yeah.
I did quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
It's a great way to procrastinate. So.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good thread for Ash. I think Ash was, in many ways, even though, ultimately I think he's very true to himself, he does latch onto things easily. And I could see how he would so easily latch onto something like, Callbacks or, something that was...
Callbacks such an amazing story, you don't need to fictionalize it to make it compelling.
True. Yeah.
It's like ready-made compelling fiction.
It happens, Yeah, so... It's not a huge part of the novel, but...
No, it just... Yeah.
But it jumped out at you.
That's the thing, one of the things that just jumped out at me.
You are really the first person who has mentioned it to me. It's funny, I thought while I was working on it, people are going to really be curious about this, and nothing, so...
What were the hardest and easiest parts of writing the novel?
I don't think there was an easy part. I think the hardest part was constructing a plot. So the first several drafts were explorations of the characters. And then I remember printing out the first draft thinking, I have a novel, it's hundreds of pages, and then I cried because there was no novel, because it was just characters walking around having thoughts and feelings, which isn't a story. So constructing a plot was definitely the most difficult, and it always is for me. I write what I consider to be character-driven fiction, which means I first come up with the characters, and then the plot emerges, because of who the characters are, as opposed to first constructing a plot point by plot point, and then just sort of assigning arbitrary characters to play the roles. Because I think in character-driven fiction, you have opportunity for great plot, whereas in plot-driven fiction, you have less opportunity for great character. So it always made more sense to me to start with character. That's A. B is that I'm just always more interested in character. I want to know how people tick. I want to know who they are. Once I start building a character, I want to get to know them so badly. Plot's secondary. But of course, plot is really important. So I had to do it, but it didn't come as naturally. And it was like, building a car or something to me. It was so tricky. So that was the hardest part.
Is that how it is for you generally in writing? The plot's most difficult, the characters are the most immediate and visceral?
Mm-hmm. Most interesting to me, yeah.
How do you go about constructing your sentences?
I think that when I was a newer writer, I paid a lot more attention to it. Now, I think after I've what people call finding your voice, I think I've found my voice. So I think that syntax often comes naturally to me, and I have to play with syntax only because it's important to make every character sound different. So, and I think syntax is a way to do that. Some people speak in long, rambling sentences. Other people speak in very, short, clipped sentences, things like that. So I play around with syntax mainly to distinguish one character from another. It's a way to control voice.
What modifying word would you most like attached to your writing?
Oh, wow. Engaging.
Engaging. I think before sometimes that's why there's.
How about you for your writing?
There's a pregnant. I like brutal. You can feel free to ask, stop and ask me questions at any point.
I think you and I are probably very different people.
Yeah. I love it when people see the savagery in my work. Like I'm someone who climbs aboard a ship with a sword in his mouth. That's stabbing people.
I'm more like the person at the bow of the ship with a rose in her mouth. So.
I'm going to get in so much trouble if I print what I just said. Engaging. So that means, is that analogous to compelling? Would that be a simile that you would use? What would be some similes you would use for engaging?
I think compelling is probably even a better word.
Okay.
Yeah, because compelling, I think, implies there's more substance. I think compelling implies more substance. Engaging, in my mind, the connotation is simply that it has entertainment value. Right. So compelling.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Smart entertainment. How's that?
Right. What things have been said to you about your mature writing that have meant the most to you?
The two compliments that I've loved best, that I've been getting in response to this novel, are A, people who say I stayed up all night, or I missed work, or something. I couldn't pick my head up out of it because I had to finish the book. That I love. And another thing I love is when people say to me, I've never been to Israel, or I'm not Jewish, but your book made me want to go to Israel. That is really cool. So, but I guess that's just in terms of specifically this novel. Again, I